Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News Explosion.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Tim's News Explosion on this Monday, the 13th of March, 2023. We are back live on YouTube, on the Unshackled YouTube channel, as the Wilms Front YouTube channel still has 2 strikes, the first of which won't expire until April 20th. We are also live again on the Tim Wilms D-Live channel, and as always, on the Wilms Front Odyssey channel. Entropy is back, which I've put the link into the YouTube chat, so you can send myself a direct question by clicking on the link, or even better yet, send through a super chat to support Unshackled productions such as Tim's News Explosion, Wilms Front, and the report from Tiger Mountain. It is 8:30 p.m. here in Melbourne, Victoria, where the Labor Day long weekend is coming to an end, as is the Moomba Festival, which includes the Birdman Rally and, of course, the Moomba Parade today. So local stage actors Rob Mills and Rhonda Birchmore were the king and queen of Moomba. For those outside of Melbourne, the easiest way to explain what Moomba is, it's like a straight Mardi Gras festival, like the one that they have in New Orleans. So it's actually family friendly. But according to the mainstream media, we must now all be terrified of a new COVID wave happening, maybe with the Kraken variant, which of course the Kraken name is just made up by people on Twitter. It's not an official lineage designation. Its actual name is Omicron XBB 1.5. So Kraken is just meant to sound scary. I mean, it's taken a whole 2 months to come down to Australia and be the dominant strain, after it briefly dominated the US East Coast at the beginning of the year. This was the 9 News piece on the Kraken arriving.
COVID cases have spiked by 10% in the past week, with the latest variant Kraken emerging as the more dominant strain. Infectious disease experts say it is a timely reminder to check if you're eligible for your next vaccine booster. Medical reporter Emily Rice.
March is a marvellous time to get amongst it, with Melburnians riding high on a plethora of major events. But that pesky virus also loves a social outing, with infections spiking again.
This is a new wave, but I expect it to be small.
There were over 3,300 COVID cases reported in Victoria this week, a more than 10% jump. 98 people are in hospital with the virus. After attending the recent Ed Sheeran concert at the MCG, 36-year-old Izuru from Berwick has been very ill with her second bout of the virus.
Sunday morning I woke up with sore throat, runny nose, and I felt my throat was like sandpaper.
The variant, dubbed Kraken, which recently swept through the US, is well and truly established here now. Department of Health wastewater surveillance indicates Kraken, technically known as XBB.1.5, accounts for almost 40% of cases.
I prefer to call XBB extra bad boy. It's very transmissible, but it's not more severe.
The other reason for the infection uptick is waning immunity.
There's also waning interest in getting a booster, which is an unfortunate thing.
The Chief Health Officer's latest press release advising all Victorians who have not had a COVID vaccination or infection in the past 6 months are now eligible for a booster. This is irrespective of how many prior doses a person has received. Now, no one's suggesting we avoid going out this autumn, but the advice is if you are eligible, Get boosted.
Don't wait till winter. Getting it now will give you protection against something that's surging right now.
Emily Rice, 9 News.
Yes, Professor Robert Boy, who he looks the perfection of health himself. He's got his own nickname, Extra Bad Boy. And of course, Melbourne's event calendar continues this week with the AFL season starting. So the COVID Karens will again be triggered by all of these mass super spreading events made up of irresponsible, maskless football fans like this Carlton supporter from last year. That is, of course, COVID Karen Teal Independent Monique Ryan. Well, she sometimes wears a mask, sometimes she doesn't. She's the inconsistent mask Karen. And there was a ruling in the federal court last Tuesday that she won't be forced to work with her now former chief of staff, Sally Rugg. So Sally Rugg's employment with the Commonwealth has been terminated, but there will be a trial later this year to determine the merit of Sally Rugg's argument that there was a violation of the Fair Work Act in her employment with Monique Ryan because she was asked to work unreasonable hours. Now, last week, I brought you some extracts from Sally Rugg's affidavits, but there was one extract which later it turned out to be I'd fell for some fake news, and this was, of course, I found it on Twitter, supposedly from Sally Rugg's affidavit, which I'll bring it up on the screen here. So it claims that Dr. Ryan returned to the office inebriated, coming from a screening of Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, and saying that I think I get it. And she crossed her hands over her chest and loudly said, Kuyong Forever. And then she said, put me doing that at the end of my speeches. When I said no, she yelled, I'm independent, and stormed out of the iris repeatedly, doing the uprising motion and saying Kuyong Forever to herself. Yes, I fell for this fake doctored document. And so Boy Wonder over at 6 News Australia, Leonardo Puglisi did a fact check. So at yesterday in Parliament, Peter Dutton reportedly said, while Dr. Ryan was trying to ask Labor's Mark Butler a question, I thought you were going to answer questions as Prime Minister as well. And Deputy Liberal leader Susan Ley, according to The Guardian, added Kuyong Forever. It appears to have come from a meme on Twitter, specifically a fabricated screenshot by one of the court documents from the Sally Rugg case. According to the fake screenshot, Rugg claims that she had watched Black Panther Forever at the Hoyts Westfield Woodland in the ACT. None of that is a real claim by Rugg in any real court document, of course, but the fake screenshot spread online, even seeing New South Wales national candidate for Cessnock, Ash Barnum, post himself during the arm crossing motion saying Cessnock Forever. We have contacted the person who made the fake screenshot, Twitter user Barvid19, who also goes by Peter Khalil Gaming, Peter Khalil being the Labor MP for Wills. He told 6 News that he clarified under the tweet multiple times it was a joke, then eventually deleted it when I realized right-wing accounts were picking it up without the context. Despite the deletion, the meme and the phrase Kuyong Forever continues to be shared online. And now, as we've seen, the meme has even made its way into Parliament, thanks to Susan Ley. So yes, what occurred is that various Twitter accounts were sharing real extracts from Sally Rugg's affidavits, and this doctored, fabricated one was shared, and some people thought that it was real, and so it went viral. And so unless you went deep diving into Sally Rugg's affidavit, you wouldn't realize that it had been fabricated. But it's now become, as Leo said, it's become a meme, and there is now a Twitter account which has changed its name to Kooyong Forever, having Monique Ryan as the teal panther, with, of course, her wearing a mask. So it's supposedly a campaign poster for her re-election in 2025, with arms crossed while masked, saying Kooyong Forever. So it's now entered the status of urban legend, like the story of how people believe Dan really broke his back slipping down the stairs, and also, of course, former Prime Minister Scott Morrison supposedly shitting his pants at the Engadine Maccas in, I think it was 1997, 1998, when the Sharks, Cronulla Sutherland Sharks, lost the grand final. Now, to make amends for inadvertently, accidentally sharing fake news last week, I'm going to debunk a viral video of this male Karen, which some people believe is real. This is a Karen who steals a man's mail, and it is fabricated. It's a sketch.
This lady keeps stealing my mail.
Yes, I am actually. In fact, yes, taking this.
You're taking my property.
Well, you know, there's been a lot of comings and goings of UPS trucks in this neighborhood.
What about that?
A lot of packages coming to this house particular. Well, something's going on in there. Something's going on in there.
So it's Amazon.
I'm taking the package.
It's my Amazon wish list.
I'm taking the package.
No, you're not taking my package. That's my stuff.
Excuse me. Excuse me. Ow! Oh my God! You killed me!
I did not kill you. You're
Me.
fine.
Oh my God!
You sprayed me with whatever that stuff is.
Yes, clearly he didn't kill her, because she's rolling around on the ground screaming, "You killed me!" So she's very much alive. And clearly, if they wanted it to be more realistic, the mail Karen, because mail theft is a federal offense in the United States and Australia, so you can go to jail. They should have had the Karen wearing a mask while she was walking a dog, to make it more realistic as well. If the dog could be giggling, it would be Lamo. So bravo on an excellent troll there, whoever those two people are. Now let's move on to federal politics, and so Airbus Elbow was at it again. He, as I said at the end of last week's show, he was on his way to India to watch the fourth test between Australia and India, but it was dressed up as an official state visit. He was invited by Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And there wasn't. I speculated that he was going to drink some beers at the cricket, because that is one of Elbow's favorite pastimes as Prime Minister. Now, these are all the compilation of. Another nickname I have for Elbow now is El Beer. He said he was going to govern like a Bob Hawke, but instead he's drinking more like a Bob Hawke. And it's, if you notice Elbow's appearance, all of those extra kilojoules, calories from the beers, is clearly the beer gut is returning. I wonder if, because he went to India, and now he's arrived in San Diego, California. So another trip for a joint AUKUS announcement with US President Joe Biden and UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. I wonder if on those two flights he's ever tried to beat David Boone's record, which this is another urban legend, that David Boone, former Australian Test cricketer, He allegedly drank 52 beers on a flight from Australia to the UK in 1999. It was satirized in an hilarious chaser sketch called Flight Carlton United 93. But on a more serious matter about AUKUS, so it broke late last week that Australia would be purchasing up to 5 direct from the US Virginia-class nuclear-powered submarines, and then the rest are going to be made in Adelaide. And the Albanese government has boasted this will require 20,000 local jobs over the next 30 years. And the government data showed that its peak of construction, AUKUS will support 8,500 direct jobs. So this is way into the future. We won't get the ones off the line from the US until the 2030s. From 2027, the US will begin deploying nuclear submarines in Perth as a stopgap measure, and the Australian Navy in the next week is going to begin a huge recruitment drive, hoping to train hundreds of submariners to man the fleet. I wonder if the Navy ad, it'll be a rejig of the Beatles' Yellow Submarine, but instead we all live in a nuclear submarine. So AUKUS is bipartisan in Australia. After all, it was announced by the former Morrison government, and of course Joe Biden infamously called Scott Morrison that fellow down under. Thank you, pal. Now, I have to remember Joe Biden, the new Australian Prime Minister's name, Anthony Albanese, and also the new British Prime Minister's name, Rishi Sunak, as well. So hopefully his aides have got the names written down on a piece of paper so that he can read off, so he doesn't cause an international embarrassment again. And now, of course, AUKUS is it's a military strategic alliance, but it's not about containing the aggression or military geopolitical expansion of any particular nation, but communist China, of course, got again really triggered by the pending AUKUS announcement and said that these nations need to abandon this Cold War mentality, while the AUKUS member nations and say, "What? We didn't even mention you. Why are you getting so paranoid for?" And of course, it comes at in the middle of a massive staged event of the Chinese Communist Party, with the meeting of the National People's Congress, which formalized President Xi Jinping's 5th term and elects ministers to the State Council and the Premier, who runs the government. Also, an interesting development while Albanese was in India. He even got at the cricket to sing the national anthem with the Australian cricket team. So Narendra Modi, who is a Hindu nationalist, he called out, said that it was alarming that there was attacks on Hindu temples in Melbourne, which are allegedly by pro-Khalistan Sikh separatist movements. So there's been graffiti sprayed at 3 separate sites. And of course, we had the infamous mini riot at Federation Square a number of weeks back between the Palestinian sheiks and local Hindu nationalists. So Anthony Albanese said police and security agencies would ensure those responsible for vandalism would face the full force of the law. And he told Mr. Modi that Australia was a country that respected people's faith. We don't tolerate that sort of extreme actions and attacks that we've seen on religious buildings, be they be Hindu temples, mosques, synagogues, or churches. This has no place in Australia. Now moving to New South Wales, where the final countdown, the final 2 weeks of the New South Wales state election campaign, which will decide who will be Premier for the next 4 years. Will Dominic Perrottet be re-elected as Premier in his own right, leading the Liberal and National Coalition, or will it, as the polls and betting markets are suggesting, will Labor opposition leader Chris Minns bring the party back to government after 12 years in opposition? Now, it's a very sort of obviously in Victoria, it's a very combative. We have very combative elections because Dan Andrews is such a political bully. But his counterpart in New South Wales, Chris Minns, is trying to be the nice, likable guy. He says that I like Dominic Perrottet. I just want his job. So it's a gentleman's contest. There is a big contest in the upper house because that is where the balance of power will be. Mark Latham is heading the One Nation ticket again. He resigned from the upper house so he could contest a fresh 8-year term. There's obviously a Shooters, Fishers and Farmers Party MLC up for re-election. John Ruddick is running for the Liberal Democrats. Craig Kelly is running as an independent because the United Australia Party couldn't get registered in New South Wales because it's really difficult. Same with Lyle Shelton is running as an independent, albeit he is I think he's still the federal director of the Family First Party there. So there is a lot of centre-right minor parties who you only need a quota of 4.3% to get an 8-year term in the 42-member New South Wales upper house. So it's very easy to, if you get a good primary vote, to be re-elected. Now, the New South Wales Liberals had their campaign launch yesterday, and Dominic Perrottet had a bunch of children behind him, and not just his own children there, with announcing a new policy. He would create a dedicated savings fund for each child in New South Wales to be used towards the cost of education or a home deposit. And so what it will do is that a coalition government would pay parents an initial $400 for children aged 10 and under and match their future contributions with up to $400 every year until they turn 18. And now the fact that he has promised to match contributions made by parents, this means that the children of wealthier parents will be getting more in their savings accounts. So there's certainly not equity there. So he has been criticised for having this unequal policy. But Labor opposition leader Chris Minns, I'm not sure what his platform is. He doesn't want to introduce cashless gaming cards. We know that, to stop money laundering. We also know that he wants to cancel a number of transport infrastructure projects. But what we do know is when he appeared on the Kyle and Jackie O show last week, is that he's an excellent guitarist and even did some AC/DC Thunderstruck for them.
What about Thunderstruck? What about some more AC/DC?
That one.
Yeah, Thunderstruck. Go a little bit of Akadaka. Oh my God.
What?
Oh, the king of all men. Yeah, baby.
Screw that up. Anyway, you get the idea.
Jeez, look at you.
That's the upper limit of my...
Your little fingers were going like the clappers there on those strings.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's a real
Appreciate
oof.
that.
That makes you even hotter, the guitar.
Chris Minns certainly did a lot better than Scott Morrison on the ukulele with Take Me to the April Sun in Cuba. Now, also in New South Wales on the weekend, a 15-year-old spectator was ejected from an NRL game for allegedly racially abusing South Sydney's Latrell Mitchell. We don't know what this alleged slur was. We're just told to believe that it was really, really horrible. And so the 15-year-old was identified and ejected, though he wasn't shamed on the broadcast like the 14-year-old girl who called Adam Goodes an ape and was ejected. And of course, Adam Goodes referred to her as the face of Australian racism. The girl, she was very brave and courageous for her age, said that I called him an ape because he was hairy. It wasn't meant to be racist. So we don't know that if the same sort of name calling was used in this instance, which is evolution is apparently racist now. But it led to another op-ed on, well, it's called Analysis on the ABC News website by none other than Tan Grant, who said racist abuse of Indigenous NRL player Latrell Mitchell reflects Australia's past and present. How can we escape it? And it starts with, here we go again, another racist attack in sport. It wasn't a physical attack. He said words. I mean, you can say verbal attack, but Stan Grant calls it violent abuse because that's what racism is, violent abuse. And Stan Grant says that it happened to me last year when I was filming and I was called the N-word loudly to my face by a passerby while filming out the back of the ABC. And he said that I felt like I'd been punched in the face, felt really angry, hurt, and confused. And then I cried. And then he went on about all of the supposedly injustices that are still affecting Aboriginal Indigenous people. And so, yes, it's the usual diatribe from Stan Grant here. And it talks about well, you can read it for yourself if you want there, but obviously the reason why he's called Tan Grant because, well, he's been in the media for over 30 years, but only chose to have this racial identity victimhood in basically the last 15 years. And people have noticed the changing face of Stan Grant early in his career. Was extremely light-skinned. He was the presenter of the tabloid Channel 7 show Real Life in the 90s. And so this is Stan Grant hosting Q&A in 2023. It looks like he's upped the tanning the tanning level in his tanning booth. And so there has been this CGI about what Stan Grant will look like in 2024, assuming that he'll turn his tanning booth into charcoal, into the charcoal level of tan there. So yes. And now, last week it was on the 8th of March, so last Wednesday, it was International Women's Day. Now, for brief history lesson, it has socialist origins from the early 20th century, and it was first celebrated in Russia after the February Revolution, and it was embraced by Soviet Russia and socialist organizations all around the world. And now it was big for the modern feminist movement 10 years ago. That was until the modern left could no longer define what a woman is. And we saw some really bizarre corporate international Women's Day marketing. So first, there was over in the US, the Hershey's chocolate bar for International Women's Day, which had a transgender activist. So are they going to rename Hershey's them theys? Because basically the name of it is a female pronoun there. I'm not sure if any of you have had a Hershey's chocolate bar, but it tastes shit. Some people say they taste like vomit. And so Faye Johnston is the trans woman who was fronting the Hershey's ad. So her for she was the slogan. And then, of course, in Australia, we had this non-binary activist who front a local See Folly campaign, Denny Todorovic, 34. And so this is supposed to be modeling a female piece of swimwear, but of course females in their swimsuit costumes don't expose their nipples. I mean, women's swimwear covers the breasts, and their reaction was that some women have penises. Do some women have beards as well? Like, I would have thought if like somebody was really non-binary gender fluid, they'll sort of look like a sort of mixture of both. That like not just looking like a bearded man who's wearing women's clothing there. Now, normally what happened on International Women's Day in the past is that organizations like the ABC would sack all their male presenters for the day and only have women, because what spells gender equality than only having one gender on the air? But there was one International Women's Day rant by an ABC presenter, which I absolutely thought was spot on, and that was by Lisa Miller, who is co-host of ABC News Breakfast. Now, ever since she joined the program, she has been viciously abused, trolled by the Twitter leftist drips because she is not 100% left. She is critical of the Labor governments and parties, and they decided, the Twitter drips, that because a lot of what they have is just personal abuse, decided to say some really disgusting things about her dress that she wore on last Monday's program there. This was one of the camera angles, but this is another angle of the dress, and as you can see, there is no split in the dress there, and Lisa Miller, clearly having had enough of this relentless Twitter campaign of abuse, because she is not a far leftist presenter at the ABC. In fact, she quit Twitter because of the relentless abuse. So she went on this rant, which, as I said, it was epic.
I'd actually like to take a minute to talk about what went on during the last 48 hours. If you're blessedly oblivious and you've just been getting on with your life, great. I'm not going to dwell on it. The fact that what I wore on Monday attracted obnoxious commentary on Twitter, foul, disgusting personal abuse that I wouldn't and couldn't repeat here, it was upsetting. That it then ended up online on some news sites where the photos and the abuse were republished made me angry. Thanks for all your support. You've been awesome. Honestly, some of you have actually been pretty funny, suggesting if we actually all turned up in pyjamas, you'd still be fans of the show. I am angry, though, on this International Women's Day. Angry on behalf of myself and also on behalf of other women, young women, who see those stories and see someone like me being violently abused day after day for whatever reason bullies can find. I worry it might make you think that no progress has been made and that it's not worth it to be a woman in the public arena. Well, on this International Women's Day, I want to tell you the response over that rubbish yesterday actually gives me a bit of hope. We are making progress. We are going to make more progress. And there are so many awesome women who we can all look up to. So let's celebrate them today. And please, make a conscious decision today to be part of the solution. Play a part in making our communities a better, kinder place for everyone.
Now, it was the Daily Mail and news.com.au which wrote news articles which magnified the tweets abusing her dress. And former 7:30 host Lee Sales, who, in my opinion, was driven out of the 7:30 hosting role by these leftist Twitter drips. She wrote on her Facebook, incredibly gracious and classy statement by Lisa Miller. Let's not pretend this is something that has just been happening for a couple of days or that is purely sexism. It has been going on for years now, and it is unhinged, politically motivated campaign of bullying and trolling waged on Twitter and mostly driven by hardcore left-wing zealots aimed at impartial journalists. The fact that Lisa Miller has been one of the primary targets show how truly unhinged it is. It is then amplified by media organizations who treat Twitter comments as news. And now I notice people in the comments didn't like Lisa Miller's rant, but the reason that I've chosen to cover this is because the left are particularly vicious to, well, women who don't toe their lines, who are not rabid leftist feminists like them, and especially on the ABC. They think that all ABC presenters on their ABC should be ultra far left, like Patricia Karvelas and Virginia Trioli and Fran Kelly. The list could go on, but that's why they go viciously after impartial journalists like Lee Sales and Lisa Miller there. And I guess it's another example of, and I know that some of you won't like me saying this, that leftists are the real misogynists. Now, moving on to, well, it's a related International Women's Day event. So we have in Australia, we have Kelly J. Keane, aka Posey Parker, conducting Let Women Speak public meeting speaking boxes, like to have like a literal town hall. They're in public, and she speaks and then lets other women speak as well. That's why our organization is called Let Women Speak. Now, I don't follow her commentary as closely as some of you in the chat. Me and Margot, we are planning to go to her Melbourne Let Women Speak, a public square outside Parliament House. She will be joined by the new Liberal MLC, Moira Deeming. In the Sydney Let Women Speak on Saturday, there, of course, there was a far left Marxist LGBTQ whatever counter protesters there, and here is what some of them looked like. And now they will be there at Parliament House in Melbourne, the campaign against racism and fascism. Of course, Melbourne is where the local Antifa is strongest. So let's hope that the women speaking are protected. You can watch she live streams all of her town squares. Kelly J. Keane, and so you can watch them on a YouTube channel in full to see what exactly was said and judge for yourself whether it is a sane, rational commentary or whether you agree with that mob that she's some sort of transphobe. Now, there was another rally in Sydney. It was an extremely hot day on the Saturday, and that was the protest of Christians outside the Channel 10 headquarters over the airing of that blasphemous joke by alleged comedian Reuben Kay on The Project a couple of weeks back. But what it was remembered for was that the retiring Christian Democrat MLC, Fred Nile, he was rushed to hospital after he fainted after speaking. He's 88 years old, and he has actually, I should say, deregistered his Christian Democratic Party. He was the sole MLC left, so this is his statement. Fred Knowles in a stable condition after collapsing this morning at a rally against the Network 10's The Project. He would like to express his appreciation to the Christian community for their support and prayers, and extends his thanks to the paramedics, duty doctor and nurses for professional treatment. He will stay in hospital overnight for observations, but he's hoping to be back exalting Jesus Christ at the Holy City March tomorrow afternoon. The Niles are grateful for their support and prayers that have received during this tough time, and like to request privacy as the Reverend recovers. Now, the Holy City March, that is when good is meant to triumph over evil, and there's people's white T-shirts get covered in lots of colorful paint. Their shirts look a bit rainbowish, but it's the traditional rainbow like that you see in the sky. Now, going back to as Kelly J. Keane talks about the erasure of mocking of women. You all remember the woodshop teacher, Kayla Lemure, who was teaching at a school in Ontario, Canada. Well, he has now been suspended because this is Kayla Lemieux. This is a recent photo, not dressed as a woman, without the ridiculous prosthetic Z-size breasts. And so he has been suspended now. His real name is Kerry Demure. Now, there was some speculation at the time that this was an epic troll by this man, and it looks to be that this could be the truth. And you'd have to say it is probably one of the best in real life trolls that has ever taken place. And because the rumor was that he was about to be stood aside because he wasn't diverse enough, so he decided to be diverse so he couldn't be fired. It's almost like the South Park episode where Mr. Garrison decides to be super gay, including having Mr. Slave in his class to punish, to try and get fired, so he can get a cash settlement there for discrimination there. Now, we also have the continued disgusting sex ed classes by drag queens. Now, if I go to, I've got so many tabs open here. So this is actually from last week. In the Isle of Man, which is outside the UK, sex ed classes have been cancelled after a drag queen taught children that there are 73 genders. So they've suspended the program in response to parental complaints about the graphic, disproportionate, indecent presentation involving descriptions of sexual acts and discussion about gender identities. Where one reportedly upset child disagreed about there being 73 genders, responding that there are only 2, the drag queen allegedly replied, "You upset me," and made the student leave the class. Further complaints alleged that one group of grade 7 students were taught about oral and anal sex. Another group in the same grade was shown images of philosophy surgery, which involves surgeons stripping the skin and flesh of a female's patient's forearm and using it to construct a non-functioning appendage resembling a penis. A lot of children are just too traumatized to even talk to their parents. The vice chairman of the Marwan Commission, Eliza Cox, said, "As a parent, you don't know what your child is being taught." So yes, it just keeps getting even more disturbing, and this is why there is pushback in several US red states to ban graphic, inappropriate sexual education to young children. Obviously, Florida has its parental rights in education bill, and the state of Tennessee has just passed a law banning drag queen story time events, well, drag events aimed at children. But what has happened in the aftermath is that the lieutenant governor of Tennessee, a man by the name, he's 79 years old, a man by the name of Randy McNally. This was found out by one of these progressive groups that scour conservative politicians' social media, trying to make them out to be hypocrites. They were the ones who dug up the homoerotic jokes that Madison Cawthorn had with his cousin, which eventually led to him losing his primary. So the lieutenant governor of Tennessee, Randy McNally, he's a great grandfather. He has been caught commenting on a gay Instagram model's salacious posts. This is the local news channel 5 in Nashville, Tennessee, covering it.
They are photos that most of us would call shocking, and they are being commented on by the lieutenant governor. Good evening, I'm Carrie Sharp.
And I'm Rory Johnston. We want to get right to 5 Alert anchor Hunter Hoagland, who is following this. Hunter, Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally leaving a number of comments below some racy social media photos of another man.
Yeah, Rory, that's exactly right. And surprisingly, the Lieutenant Governor owning all of it tonight. Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally's press team not blaming a staffer or even to be hacked, instead saying that commenting on Instagram photos is just something Randy McNally often does. But these aren't your usual Instagram photos, right? Take a look at your screen right now. Social media was abuzz tonight after users found that McNally frequently commented on another male user's Instagram page from his verified account. Over the last 3 years, the Lieutenant Governor has been regularly commenting on these extremely racy pictures of an influencer. Everything from typing out fire emojis where the male user had posted his backside to commenting that he has, quote, a super look and that he loves his content. Social media users tonight quick to point out what they are calling hypocrisy, noting that the Lieutenant Governor just recently voted to ban certain drag shows, which many in the LGBTQ community say was discriminatory. News Channel 5 reached out to McNally for a statement. Here's what his press team had to say. Trying to imply something sinister or inappropriate about a great-grandfather's use of social media says more about the mind of the left-wing operative making the implication than it does about Randy McNally. As anyone in Tennessee politics knows, Lieutenant Governor McNally is a prolific social media commenter. He takes great pains to view every post that he can and frequently posts encouraging things to many of his followers. Does he always use the proper emoji at the proper time? Maybe not, but he enjoys interacting with constituents and Tennesseans of all religions, backgrounds, and orientations on social media, adding he has no intention of stopping. This story likely to get a lot of attention.
It says, I'm engaging with my constituents. It reminds me of course, the famous Little Britain characters. So Norman Fry MP in the UK and Senator White in the US, who'd explain embarrassing situations quite innocuously. And so this local TV station, they did interview the Lieutenant Governor, Randy McNally. The full interview goes for about 5 minutes, but this was his explanation about why he was commenting on this gay influencer whose name is Franklin Superstar. This is how he explained it.
Were you trying to help this young man in some sort of way?
Just basically trying to encourage him.
There was also this post where the man said he was, quote, not a whore, but a hoe. One is a slut, the other is a prostitute, adding, I'm the one that gets free weed for giving, then a reference to a sexual act.
And it was liked by Lieutenant Governor McNally.
Yeah. I don't know that, a lot of times on people's posts, you see the name and you see what they've written and you just press the button that says like.
So you didn't read that post?
I don't recall reading the part about the weed. I know that.
But what about the prostitute?
I might have read that.
In that case, was it appropriate to like the comment?
Probably not. Probably not.
And News Channel 5, they also spoke to the influencer at the center of this political firestorm, Franklin Superstar.
Really do love people, and I think he just knows that and knew that, and so he knew that I would be someone that just he could tell stuff to, I guess. I don't know, maybe felt like he was cool because I'm like a 20-year-old guy, and he thought maybe I was popular, maybe, I don't know. And so he knew we talked a little bit, so he could text me on Instagram. And so I guess I don't know, became an outlet for him to feel like he was hip.
Now, technically, Randy McNally is not a hypocrite because the bill, the Drag Queen Storytime ban is an anti-grooming bill, and this influencer is 20 years old. He's an adult. I did come across this story via a post by Clarkson Dawson, who's a member of Gays Against Groomers, who had the same reaction as me to this firestorm, I will call it. Now, also before the Tennessee State Congress is a bill to ban gender transitions for minors. Now, a lot of the reason why there is this anti-grooming push is because the Daily Wire is now based in Tennessee. And of course, Michael Knowles of the Daily Wire last week was accused of wanting to unleash a genocidal campaign against transgenderism, because he said transgenderism needs to be eradicated. And now he was interviewed by his mate, Charlie Kirk, in the aftermath. And watch for the end where Charlie Kirk makes this hilarious joke.
People say, how do we get our country back and all this? You need young, articulate, entrepreneurial truth tellers that are empowered to push the status quo, to push tired old dogma, and you're going to start to see legislative wins and courage happen because of it. I've said this before. The media hates when I say this. Politicians are only reading off the script that we give them, and the script is largely made sense of by articulate, podcasters or radio show hosts, Tucker Carlson, Michael Knowles, Candace Owens, Shapiro, Walsh, and all of a sudden now Tennessee has accomplished something that would have been a pipe dream a couple of years ago. We went from a conservative movement that was afraid to do bathroom bills in Indiana and North Carolina to now banning the medical mutilation of children. What changed? What changed is now the people who are that are communicating the truth are no longer just the talking heads on TV. There's a new generation of truth tellers, and it has liberated the conservative movement. Michael, we're out of time. Best of luck on your genocidal campaign. And I'm kidding,
Charlie.
Media
Appreciate
Matters. I'm kidding.
Oh, you're such a comedian, Charlie Kirk. Now, Michael Knowles' nemesis, Dr. Anne Lesby, gender studies professor at ACLU University, conducted a poll on her Twitter that said right-wing bigots such as Michael Knowles are genocidal maniacs. So 9% of her followers agreed, but 91% of her followers said they support genocide. Now, Dr. Anne Lesby, as you will know, has called in to Michael Knowles' program, though Michael Knowles is not so sure now that Dr. Lesby, Lesby Ann, is actually a real person.
One of my favorite accounts on Twitter is Dr. Ann Lesby. And for a while, I thought this was a serious account. And then I started looking. I said, wait, Dr. Ann Lesby, is that something a little off about that? I don't know. Maybe it's for serious. These days, it's impossible.
Yes, and there's a whole bunch of copycat hilarious accounts now by these doctors of gender studies as well. And now moving on to it was a stunning, shocking revelation last week that 40,000 hours of footage from January 6 had been hidden from the American people while Nancy Pelosi was House Speaker and the January 6 Unselect Committee held their primetime show trial. So Tucker Carlson, his team went through it, and probably the most, you would say, important and also at the same time scandalous revelation was the fact that Jacob Chansley, better known as Q Sharman, was escorted into the US Senate when he was going through the Capitol. They acted more like tour guides, and so this is what Tucker Carlson's narration.
Dangerous conspiracy theorist dressed in outlandish costume who led the violent insurrection to overthrow American democracy. For these crimes, Chansley was sentenced to nearly 4 years in prison, far more time than many violent criminals now receive. What did Jacob Chansley do to receive this punishment? To this day, there is dispute over how Chansley got into the Capitol building. But according to our review of the internal surveillance video, it is very clear what happened once he got inside. Virtually every moment of his time inside the Capitol was caught on tape. The tapes show that Capitol Police never stopped Jacob Chansley. They helped him. They acted as his tour guides. Here's video of Chansley in the Senate chamber. Capitol Police officers take him to multiple entrances and even try to open locked doors for him. We counted at least 9 officers who were within touching distance of unarmed Jacob Chansley. Not one of them even tried to slow him down. Chansley understood that Capitol Police were his allies. Video shows him giving thanks for them in a prayer on the floor of the Senate. Watch.
Thank you, Heavenly Father, for giving the inspiration needed to these police officers to allow us in this building.
Contrast the reality of what Jacob Chansley did in the Capitol building on January 6th.
And now the reason, Margot, is that we are still talking about January 6th because this footage was even denied to Chansley's lawyers. They were supposed to have access to it as part of the brief of evidence. And so Jacob Chansley is in prison for 4 years as part of a plea deal. A lot of people on Twitter saying, "Oh, he pled guilty." Well, because he didn't want to get even more. I mean, he was stitched up, and so he really his options were limited, especially since this footage, which should exonerate him, was denied to his lawyers. And this is a cartoon by one of my favorite MAGA cartoonists, Branko, which has Chuck Schumer reaction to Tucker Carlson's footage, because remember, according to Chuck Schumer, easily the funniest member of the Schumer family. January 6th was up there with Pearl Harbor, 9/11, and the Civil War. He demanded that Tucker Carlson be taken off the air by the Fox News owner, Rupert Murdoch.
These lies continue tonight. Rupert Murdoch, who has admitted they were lies and said he regretted it, has a special obligation to stop Tucker Carlson from going on tonight, now that he's seen how he has perverted and slimed the truth, and from letting him go on again and again and again. Not because their views deserve such opprobrium, but because our democracy depends on it.
Naughty Designer said, "What's Tim been browsing? You're sure you're referring to the 25% off plant protein?" And I'm not going to say what that is. These ads, they just show up on the TU website, but that one there, yes, is probably inappropriate for the TU website. So I'll see what I can do about getting that removed. But I mean, plant protein, I mean, you might like it. But going back to the topic, former President Donald Trump, he posted on Truth Social. Here's a reaction. He said, "Congratulations to Tucker Carlson on one of the biggest scoops as a reporter in U.S. history. The new surveillance footage of the January 6th event sheds an entirely different light about what actually happened. The Unselect Committee was a giant scam and has now unequivocally been stamped as criminal fabricators of this most important day. Pelosi and McConnell failed on security. The police story is sad and difficult to watch. Trump and most others are totally innocent. Let them go free now." So it was accurate to describe January 6th from the beginning as a mostly peaceful protest, and by the mainstream media's own definition. All right, now let's move on to a much more alarming present development, and that is the collapse first of Silicon Valley Bank. And so this was, in case you haven't heard much about, I'd never heard of Silicon Valley Bank, but it largely finances startups, particularly in the tech industry, which the tech bubble is bursting. You only need to look at Twitter and Facebook slashing jobs. And the employees of Silicon Valley were given annual bonuses hours before the bank was taken over by regulators. And depositors who tried to get their money out, the police were called on them. Now, why were people investing and putting their money in Silicon Valley Bank? Maybe because they had foolishly listened to Jim Cramer, who you should always do the opposite of what Jim Cramer recommends. He's the longtime CNBC host of Mad Money and head, amazingly, of their investment club. And this is what Jim Cramer said about Silicon Valley Bank, SVB. just a month ago.
The ninth best performer year to date is SVB Financial. Don't yawn. This company's a merchant bank with a deposit base that Wall Street had been mistakenly concerned about. SVB is the old Silicon Valley Bank. Recently bought one of our favorite research firms, Nathanson, and it's become less dependent upon private equity and venture capitalist offerings. Wait a second. Those dried up last year. They could come back. Yeah, some of them come back here with the stock directly affects an oversold position. Stock was the fourth worst performer in 2022. I think the fears were not justified, and it's a very compelling situation. Hey, by the way, long-term private equity and venture capital, they're not going away. Being the banker to these immense pools of capital has always been a very good business. Stock's still cheap. Now, you have to remember that a stock that falls 66% like SVB Financial did last year, it takes it a lot more to recover. After losing 2/3 of your value, you need a 200% gain to get back to even. This is arithmetic. Some people call it geometry. So you could argue SVB's nearly 40% rally this year is barely a drop in the bucket. And that's how I want you to think it. I think it's also a good example of why these bounce back moves might be far from over. These stocks could have more room to run, especially if you think they were driven down to artificially low levels by tax loss selling, artificial dumping, like we saw.
Now, that clip is courtesy of, there is a dedicated Inverse Kramer account, which, if you want to know the history of Jim Cramer, during the global financial crisis of 2008, he said that Bear Stearns was a sure thing. He also called a convicted fraudster, Elizabeth Holmes, the next Steve Jobs, and even interviewed her, and also called Sam Bankman-Fried of FTX, which of course went under late last year. As it was revealed, it was a giant Ponzi scheme. Called him the next JP Morgan. There also needs to be a Twitter account, Inverse Forbes magazine, because they also called Elizabeth Holmes I think it was actually another magazine that called her the next Steve Jobs. But yes, she was on the front cover of Forbes with her fake blood tests. And of course, Sam Bankman-Fried was on the front of Forbes 100. And then on the 6th of March, just last week, SVB, Silicon Valley Bank, said they were proud to be on Forbes' annual ranking of America's best banks for the 5th straight year, and have also been named the publication's inaugural financial all-stars list. And now, as many feared, another bank has gone under, and that is Signature Bank in New York, which, of course, Jim Cramer pumped up in 2022.
Let's start with Signature Bank. This is a New York-based commercial bank, but it's got 36 private client offices sprinkled across the New York metro area, California, and North Carolina. The thing about Signature is that it's a business-oriented bank, and to the extent that they have a consumer business, it's focused on the wealthy, namely business owners and senior executives who do a lot of business, and you can make a lot of money working with.
Now, the various apparatus of the US government, they are not going to bail out these banks, because they wouldn't get away with it again like they did in 2008, but the US Federal Reserve and are going to guarantee all depositors their money, so they'll still get their money, but the banks will still fail. And Joe Biden's Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen, she's just come back from a trip from Ukraine to give Vladimir Zelensky more US taxpayers' money. She's also a former Fed chair. This was her on CBS Face the Nation on Sunday.
Let me say, America's economy relies on a safe and sound banking system that can provide for the credit needs of our households and businesses. So whenever a bank, especially one like Silicon Valley Bank with billions of dollars in deposits, fails, it's clearly a concern.
So that's what the U.S. Treasury finance side of the Biden administration is doing. Biden's State Department is in the middle of orchestrating another color revolution in Georgia. So this is from the Ron Paul Institute for Peace and Prosperity. His podcast with his institute's executive director, Daniel McAdams, has been spot on about how the State Department and CIA has been launching these various color revolutions in former Soviet states. They, of course, orchestrated the Euromaidan revolution in Ukraine in 2014, which overthrew the democratically elected pro-Russian president. And so since then, there's been pro-EU, pro-US presidents, which obviously Volodymyr Zelensky is the latest. So this color revolution in Georgia, I'm not sure what color it is, there were these spontaneous protests that occurred because the party in power in Georgia at the moment, they wanted to pass a law that entities such as NGOs or media organizations that received more than 20% of their funding from abroad had to register as foreign agents and explain their funding source. The largely symbolic pro-Western president of Russia said that she would veto the legislation, though the government of Georgia has already backed down on it. But, well, as you can see there, it says there's a sign that says fuck Russia, as from supposedly a Breaking News Ukraine protests against pro-Russian government in Georgia. Now, from the outside, most people would say that you don't want foreign interference in your country, and so it makes sense that if there's foreign NGOs, media in your country, they should have to disclose their funding. It was designed to expose where the Soros money is coming in Georgia. But yes, it was very suspicious, these spontaneous protests, especially the waving of European Union flags, which I've got some. Have I uploaded the footage here? Oh, yes, I have got it here. Yes, they just have some EU flags lying around. And now I've brought to you she is the works and statements of the Queen of Coups, Victoria Nuland, Under Secretary of State for Political Affairs, another deep state swamp creature, who, praising the Georgian protests, said that the laws gravely threaten Georgia's Euro-Atlantic future and the ability of Georgians to fulfill their own economic, social, and other inspirations. So in case you're wondering, Samantha Power, she is a former United Nations ambassador for the United States under President Obama and under President Biden. She is head of the United States Agency for International Development. So all of these swamp creatures, Victoria Nuland, Samantha Power, they've all, from the Obama administration, they've all come back for the Biden administration, which I said earlier on has most of the same people as the Obama administration. So you could call it the Obama term 3. Now let's go over to the UK, where Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and Home Secretary Suella Braverman, they've now developed a law which they said is finally going to stop the illegal boats coming across dinghies across the English Channel from France. And this is from the video that she put out, Suella Braverman, from the official UK Home Department account.
Last year, over 45,000 people made the unsafe, unnecessary and illegal journey across the Channel. Our asylum system has been overwhelmed. We're now spending almost £7 million a day on hotels. Stopping the boats is one of the 5 promises the Prime Minister has made to the British people, and it's my top priority. That's why today I'm announcing a new illegal migration bill to do exactly that. The Prime Minister and I have been working flat out for months to bring this legislation to Parliament. This bill will mean that if you come here illegally, you will not be able to stay. You will be detained and removed to your home country if safe, or a safe third country like Rwanda. We are committed to helping those in need, like the hundreds of thousands of people we have supported from Ukraine, Afghanistan, and Hong Kong in recent years. But it's not fair that people who travel through a string of safe countries and then come to the UK illegally can jump the queue and game our system. This bill will bring an end to that. Enough is enough. We must stop the boats.
Well, as I've said before, Suella, your talk is cheap. And of course, what happened to the Rwandan solution that you're going to fly them all to Rwanda to resettle there? They're trying to implement the Australian successful stop the boats policy with the Pacific solution offshore processing. But the reason they gave up on the Rwandan solution is because the UK, it's not part of the European Union, but it's still part of the Council for Europe. And so the judges in the European, I can't remember if it's the European Court of Human Rights, it's because there's more than one European institution. So UK is still part of the Council for Europe. The judges in Strasbourg knocked it back. So how do we know that they're not going to knock back this law? Now, of course, there's no end of social justice warriors who think that this is a cruel law stopping these poor refugees coming from, well, a safe country such as France. They're coming from France, which is a country, first world country not at war, and coming over to the UK. When they move into a safe country, they flee whatever they're fleeing, if they are refugees, then the international law is that if they're in a safe country, then that's where they need to stay while they're being processed. They can't go country hopping because otherwise they're economic migrants, not refugees. But one of the most SJW personalities in the UK football pundit employed by the BBC to present Match of the Day, Gary Lineker, he tweeted, "There is no huge influx. That is completely false. We take far fewer refugees than other major European countries. This is just an immeasurably cruel policy directed at the most vulnerable people in language that is not dissimilar to that used by Germany in the 1930s. And am I out of order? Well, yes, you are, Gary Lineker. I mean, the 1930s Germany was run by a bunch of white Germanic peoples. And so if you check the skin color of Rishi Sunak and Suella Braverman, they're brown. They're a completely different race to the 1930s German leaders. Now, because Gary Lineker is employed by the BBC, which is supposed to be impartial, he has been suspended from his hosting duties, which just reinforced people believing that 1930s Germany is coming. He was censored for criticizing the government, even though his wage is paid by the compulsory TV license fees that Brits are forced to pay if they own a TV. It's a form of tax. You can go to jail if you don't pay your TV license fee. So it's supposed to be impartial. There is word now that the BBC and Gary Lineker, they are coming coming to some sort of agreed settlement. But what happened over the weekend is all of his other match of the day presenters, such as Alan Shearer, walked out in protest and solidarity because his free speech was being suppressed. Of course, free speech only matters to them because they're having nice speech. It's not what they call hate speech. So match of the day, it just had highlights of that day's football games with no punditry, and nothing of value was lost. Of course, Gary Lineker, he has his free speech, just not, if you're going to take money from the taxpayer, you should be impartial and stick to what you're paid for. Like nobody takes there's no disciplinary action against Gary Neville over at Sky Sports, who's also an SJW, because he is paid by a commercial company, NBC Universal Comcast there. Yeah, so it's been a whole, a huge media circus. They're camped outside his property. But imagine if the ABC in Australia was so decisive in suspending or even sacking their hosts, who on Twitter made blatant politically biased statements, like, I'll mention their names again, Patricia Karvelis, Raph Epstein, Virginia Trioli, Laura Tingle, Louise Milligan. I mean, if ABC was proactive as the BBC, there'd be a mass clean out at the ABC, but sadly, that's not the case here. So yes, time will tell if this new law actually stops the boats. I mean, they've hardly made any effort, but we shall see. I had obviously a couple. It was now, I think it was now, 2 weeks ago, I had as a guest on Wilms Front the Reverend James Costello, who was at one of the protest outside the migrant hotels, where there was in Liverpool, there was alleged grooming of a 15-year-old girl. So they're not even put into detention centers. They're in a 4-star hotel where they can come and go as they please. So they've hardly made any steps towards an Australian type stop the boats system there. But that's all have time for Wilms Front tonight. Again, gone well over time, but not as over time as last week. So thank you so much for your company as always. I hope you enjoyed my Wilms Front last night with Professor Gigi Foster, who, as we speak, is on Q&A back in the Lion's Den there. I've still got her books as the displayed books on my bookcase, The Great COVID Panic and Do Lockdowns and Border Closures Serve the Greater Good? Spoiler alert, they don't. So there's no Wilms Front scheduled for this Sunday. So I will see you all on air again on Monday for another Tim's News Explosion. And I could have a Wilms Front show on Sunday, so stay tuned. I keep you up to date on my Telegram and Gab primarily. And of course, Marg and I plan to cover the Let Women Speak event in Melbourne. It's at noon on the steps of Victoria's Parliament House with Kelly J. Keane, Posey Parker. And yes, so we shall see how that transpires here. And of course, there'll be a new report from Tiger Mountain with Richard Wollstonecroft published later in the week, ending his trilogy on cancel culture. And of course, if I can't support TU with super chats, you can sign up for a premium membership on our website. Bronze $5 per month, 10 for silver per month, gold $25 per month, platinum $50 per month. And of course, the unshackled.net is where you can find our Unshackled's Productions archive. And also it has our written articles as well. Hadron says that make sure you protect him, Margot. I'm not sure if Margot knows some kung fu moves or jiu-jitsu, But yeah, we'll certainly make sure that we do it safely there. I will try to get as close to the leftists as we can. I know that Rita Panicky, Sky News host, tried to get close to them in Sydney. It's obviously, we will make sure that it's done safely and still get you the most accurate footage from the day, because of course the mainstream media will slant it that evening. So good night, everybody. Thank you so much again for your company and your comments as well. You in the live chat, you make it you contribute just as much to the discussion as myself some of the time. I like reacting and having you part of the show. Hadron Anti-Bullying has a question. Tim, will you get Whitney Webb on the show to talk about the World Economic Forum? She's the only one who knows what's going on. Is she the author who's done the 2 volumes on the intelligence operations, Epstein and Maxwell? Is that who you're talking about? I can try and get her on. I'm not sure if she'll reply because she's very in demand, but thank you for the suggestion. All right, everybody, I'll see you all again soon. Stay safe, stay sane, stay free, stay healthy, stay happy, and yes, stay informed as well by real facts and news that I bring you every week. Try to explain to you what's really going on, the inverse reality, which was the title of my show, because what the mainstream media wants to make you believe is the opposite of what's going on. Good night, everybody.
Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News Explosion.